Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Today's guest is John Mcmillian. He's the executive director, is that what I would call
That's correct, yeah.
of the Alabama Cannabis Commission. And he's been a guest with us, about 8 months ago via Zoom, but this is his first time in the studio with us. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be with you again in much more suitable circumstances.
Yeah, it is a lot better to be
Super.
tucked away in a nice soft.
A lot better than Zoom.
Well, it's more real. It's good to see you and be able to engage with you. So, John was formerly a state secretary, a treasurer for the state of Alabama, and he took the position as the director after he left that position as treasurer. And he's been working on trying to get our laws up and running and in place. We are, of course, behind the 8 ball. As always, things always move slower and take longer when you're trying to do something of this magnitude. But can you kind of bring us up to date since the last 8 months? I know we've turned in some licensing deadlines.
Yes.
And those deadlines have passed, and some people that were trying to get in have decided to get out. Some of the bigger companies that are in other states. So where are we right now with the ability to open a door one day?
Since the last time we visited, we have gotten through with our rules and regulations, and we have sent the license applications out to the folks that had requested them. And we just had the deadline a week or 10 days ago on the return of the applications. Now our staff is reviewing the applications. Our legislation has a deficiency clause in it. That's the next step is we review the applications for any deficiencies. We notify the applicant if there are any, and they definitely will be. And then they have 60 days to respond and make any corrections is the simplest way to describe it, I guess.
And how many applicants did you get?
We wound up with 94 applicants.
And from that 94, we're trying to whittle down to a much smaller number of actual licensees.
Right. The legislation set up a specific number that the commission can award licenses to in each category. The integrated license, which is the big seed to sale license that does everything, is the simplest one to talk about, and there will only be 5 of those statewide, and at least one has to be a minority license. So and the same pattern holds true with varying numbers.
So of those 94, when he talks about integrated license, he's talking about the ability to grow it and transport it and dispense it from the ground to the counter at the retail store, the same person doing the whole chain of custody.
That's right.
And there are only 5 of those licenses. Now, are those 5 pulled from those 94?
No, they'll be proved, and I brought my cheat sheet because there's so many dates and numbers in here. But with the processor, they get also dispensary licenses along with that license. So you're right. They grow it, process it, transport it, and prepare the product to be sold in their dispensaries.
All of this takes place within the state of Alabama.
Correct.
So it's not coming from anywhere else. And another important thing is this is a Department of Agriculture matter. So it's that's who's really regulating.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because the legislation mandated several state agencies to work with us, starting with agriculture on the cultivator side of it, and then like ALEA with security and revenue with the tax collection, and all of those agencies have just bent over backwards to work with us and help us in trying to get this agency up and running and this program going as soon as possible.
So aside from the integrated license that allows for the seed to sell licensing, which as you said includes a dispensary, we only have authorized 37?
37 statewide if the commission awards those licenses.
It
the
can be
commission
less.
has the discretion to at any number. All those numbers say no more than or up to. Or
Okay, must have been written by a lawyer.
It's about 6 of them.
Yeah, always trying to leave some wiggle room in there. I know that in addition to being able to get the blessing of your agency, those entities that want to open dispensaries, whether through an integrated license or not, have to have an ordinance passed in the municipality where they intend to open. Isn't that correct?
Municipality or county if it's outside of municipalities. But that really doesn't have anything to do with us. That's between the folks that are applying for the licenses and the municipalities or the local government, municipalities or counties, whichever it might be. And that's gone well. We've had a number. I think we're up to about 60 cities and counties that have passed ordinances or resolutions to authorize the location in there.
So we have twice as many cities than we're going to have dispensaries.
That's about right. Yeah.
Well, that could change.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about maybe the other variety of licensing that you mentioned, cultivation.
Yeah.
That's different. That's just for somebody that.
The cultivation is purely for somebody that has a license to grow the cannabis, and then they will in turn, in the case of everybody, the processors, they'll buy it from those cultivators. The integrators will have their own growth facility.
All right, I want to get back to that when we come back from break, because it's a little complicated. We're using some terminology that's going to be a new language for most of us.
Absolutely.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Do not go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're discussing a real hot topic in the state of Alabama, which is, as I said in our last meeting, I'm shocked that I'm even able to have this conversation. I never thought this day would approach, and it is approaching. We're not going to hit the mark of 2023, it doesn't sound like.
It'll be late. That's our timeline now, is late 23.
Okay. So, we talked about cultivating licenses, and then in the course of discussing, are there a limited number of cultivators as well?
Yeah, there are. We actually have 12 applicants, and I think there are 12 licenses that potentially could be issued.
So those are farmers that want to grow the plant.
I would be surprised if all 12 of those are issued, frankly. Okay. But yeah, that's the folks that plant it, take care of it, just like it's a corn crop or a soybean crop, except it's very technologically advanced, growing inside, extremely sophisticated lighting and
watering,
humidity control, and everything that goes with all that. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the word processors. Now, is that a separate license?
It's a separate license, except for the integrators that do it all.
Yeah.
The processing, it would be a company that has a license to buy the cannabis product from the cultivator and then process it into products.
Okay.
And then they would sell it to somebody that has a dispensary license.
All right. So we've gotten it from, we're cutting the integrated piece out because they have full range.
Right, yeah.
We now have a cultivator up to 12. We now have processors up to how many?
Yeah, I believe the processor is only 4 licenses for processors.
And how many applicants we get on that, you think?
I've got that information here. We had 12 applications.
Okay, so there might be some deficiencies. There might be some people bail out. So
There'll be very few of the applications that do not have deficiencies, from what we're seeing so far.
And so are you able to skip all those layers and go straight to a dispensary license?
Yeah, there are dispensary licenses too.
Because that's the next one, right? So you go from cultivation to processing to dispensing.
Yeah, that's right. And the dispensaries, I forget how many numbers those are, but we've got 4 licenses for dispensaries, and we had 18 applications on those. But each one of those can operate, I believe it's up to 3 or maybe 4. I think it's 3 dispensaries with the dispensary license. So it's not just a license for each dispensary.
For a location.
Right.
You can get up to 4 locations.
And that's one of the things we talked earlier about the local governments. That's one of the things in the application process, those applicants have to state where they intend to locate. And that's the reason they are the ones that are working with the cities and counties for that approval.
Does the legislation restrict the location of the dispensaries as it relates to schools, churches, like they do in other countries?
I think there's some language on that, but that again gets back to the local governments because we don't interfere with their zoning and those kind of things. And I know, for example, in Huntsville, they basically said, we've got an area that's medical part of our city, and they need to be there.
Yeah, you use a word there that I think needs to be emphasized. This entire body of legislation is built around the word medical cannabis.
Absolutely.
And of course, historically, it's been considered recreational. We are not going recreational. The type of product that ultimately will hit the shelves will not be in the form of what people call flour. There will not be edibles.
Right, or smoking. And that gets back to the flour.
So it will be pill form or gel form only?
Capsules, one edible gummy.
A gel.
Just one of those, and that incidentally will be peach flavored in Alabama.
Has to be peach flavored?
Where the commission was tasked with the responsibility of choosing the flavor.
Peach Park, you're going to get a whole new reputation.
So anyway, and I didn't mention earlier, one of the key players and the initial really key players in this is the Alabama Medical Association and the Alabama Board of Medical Examiners, who are responsible for certifying the doctors and giving them the expertise and the continuing education to make recommendations on what the patient needs in the form of medical cannabis.
Now, are there limitations on the number of doctors that have the authority to prescribe?
No, it's just purely up to the Medical Association and Board of Medical Examiners.
So just like somebody that might have pain issues right now that are getting treated with opioids or something, and they might want to get away from that, obviously.
Yeah, chronic pain seems to be, in other states, the number one reason for recommendation.
And that's on our list of,
Yes.
acceptable reasons, along with
Parkinson's, autism, the seizures, particularly with young people. We have Dr. Safarsky from UAB. The commission is outstanding. We've got a great staff as well. And we're really pleased with where we are and where things are going.
Well, we're going to take another break,
Okay.
as is required by the world of television. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what you foresee in the upcoming months in terms of getting down to the finish line. Super. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Thank you for being with us. Don't go away. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. I'm Tommy Spina. I'm talking to John Mcmillian about the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission and all the rules and regulations that have been put in place to make this work. Speaking of regulations, what other regulations do we have, and especially in the world of research?
Okay.
What are we dealing
Yeah,
with?
that's great. We other, and not so much us, although we are having a hard time merging some of the requirements in the legislation with other state rules and regulations, and that's part of the time consumption that we are dealing with to get this thing up and running. But the two things. First of all, our website has got everything on it. amcc.alabama.gov. It's got the law, the rules and regulations, everything you could want to know. But one of the, maybe the best thing the legislature did out of all of this is to provide for 30% of the revenue, which will come from a 9% sales tax, to go to research and development from the universities in Alabama. And that is huge because, because of the classification of cannabis and marijuana. The United States is way behind the rest of the world on research and development for the potential
Medical
benefits that come from this. So they dedicated 30% of that revenue to go to research and development, and that's huge because we already have, with CBD and other parts of this whole equation. I mentioned Dr. Safarsky earlier. That's his expertise, is pediatric seizures and that kind of thing. So, but we are just way behind the rest of the world. Israel is probably the leading country in the world now on research and development for the medical cannabis.
Are we able to piggyback off of?
We are. In fact, we've had one of the major breakthroughs. It's been 50 or 60 years ago, was to identify the endo. I forget this word.
Indica.
I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, that's a system, and you need to Google it and take a look at it if anybody's interested. Endocannabinoid system, okay, which we have in our bodies, and it explains how the medical cannabis interfaces with that to address pain, for example. Yeah. And it was actually an American scientist studying in an Israeli lab that was one of the two that discovered this.
So you talk about revenue. Are you saying that in addition to a regular tax that you would pay, like sales tax, there's an additional 9% tax that
outside, that'd be the only sales tax, is the 9% state sales tax.
So it would not be taxed locally?
It's the Revenue Department tells us that that's not provided for in the legislation.
Okay. Well, does some of that money flow back to the municipality?
It would be up to the legislature if that happened. The only two that are provided for in the legislation is the expenses of operating the commission and the research component.
And do we have any sophisticated guesses on how much revenue for the state of Alabama is expected to be generated?
The only revenue sources that I've had a discussion with some of the legislators that were very active in getting this legislation passed, and it took them 3 years. They believe that once we get it up and going, short period of time, 2-3 years maybe, a couple of $100 million.
For the state?
Right.
And is that money earmarked? I know 30% goes to research, but is it earmarked?
It is not. Just the research and the operation of the commission.
It'll go in the general
fund at this point, yes.
Wow. I think what people may not understand is the plant itself has so many different, I guess, chemical components to it.
Yeah,
because you see
words like terpenes and chemicals.
Yes, and it's a really fine-tuned science these days.
Which is the reason we need more research.
And
one of the reasons.
Yeah, and probably more regulation.
Yeah.
So going forward, what's the next steps, and
what
kind of timeline are we hoping to be able to get to actually be able to make an appointment with a doctor?
Yeah,
well, that's something we need to talk about too, but go ahead.
Okay, well, we're reviewing those applications, and then at our April commission meeting, we will actually release a list of the applicants who have been approved for consideration to be licensed. And then in June, we hope that the commission will be able to actually announce and award the licenses. They won't, of course, they won't be officially awarded until we go through the process of collecting the fees and all of those kind of things. And then we'll get them immediately into cultivation, processing, and the whole procedure. And we believe by December of this year, we'll actually be able to open dispensaries and have products available to the patients who have had their patient cards issued.
For starters, it's not like you can just walk up to the door and knock and be let in. You have to have a patient identification card.
Very much like a license, driver's license, and that's where ALEA plays such an important role in this. And they've been extremely helpful.
How does that interface with drug courts that I work in, or this may not be a question you can answer, it's probably maybe a question I should be able to answer, but employees that require drug testing, do we have any part of that excludes that?
The
person?
legislation addresses that, and in essence, I think if you look at it, it primarily protects employers from liability if there's a problem. But other independent businesses are, and the military is even looking at this now, whether the cannabis could be part of the drug testing regimen or not. And so individual businesses have got wide discretion themselves in how they deal with it.
And again, this is only pill, gel,
Tincture, drops under the tongue. Yeah.
And for all the problems that are enumerated at the website, which it can be prescribed. Yeah. And John Q. Public would have to go see a medical doctor who's been blessed by the medical board to prescribe this medication.
Yeah, it's a recommendation, and that all that information goes on the patient registry and the card, accessible to the commission or to the doctors or to law enforcement and all of those kind of things. From the minute the patient gets that card, everything to do with that patient and this recommendation and the amounts and the strengths and all that is there for the right people to be able to evaluate and be sure that the security is there.
Well, thank you for your hard work and leading this effort to get this going, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is our Issues Birmingham. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week.